I've got a message for millennials. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of newstarget.com. And I'm a well-known, very successful online publisher of alternative content that challenges the status quo. And if you are a millennial listening to this, just so you know, a little bit of qualification about who I am. Yeah, I'm probably twice your age, but I am anti-establishment in my views. I'm always working to reform the system, to revolutionize things for the better. I'm tired of the big banks screwing us. I'm tired of the big pharma companies screwing us. I'm tired of us eating toxic pesticides in our food and GMOs. I'm tired of the medical system shoving mercury-laced vaccines into the bodies of our children. I'm tired of all the systems that are broken, and I want to see something radically better for America. So with that said, I think most of you, being a millennial, you agree with at least that premise. But what I want to share with you is that if you vote for a Democrat, you're going about that solution in the exact wrong way. And I say this as someone who, when I was younger, when I was in college, for example, I was really, I suppose, a Democrat. I mean, I didn't officially affiliate with any party, but that's where my political beliefs were, because I wasn't really well educated about how politics really works or economics. At that time, I hadn't studied Austrian economics. I didn't really understand the cause and effect. And that's what I want to share with you. Learn from my mistakes and listen to the real wisdom of some years. And here's my warning to you. If you elect a Democrat for president, you're going to push America in the direction of Venezuela. You're going to find yourself unemployed. You're going to find yourself penniless, destitute, with no health care coverage, probably. You're going to find yourself living in a bankrupt economy, a failed nation where the debt sooner or later collapses, where job opportunities are far and few, where you are dependent on the government to give you food stamps, where employers are not able to afford to offer you jobs, where you're going to be replaced by robots, especially in the service industry and the fast food industry, and you're going to be taxed to death if you ever do make $1, and you're going to be regulated to death on everything in your personal life. If you vote for Democrats, this is the future that you are creating. And I think that that's not the future that you want. And I'm not saying that the Republican establishment has all the answers. It's obviously very, very corrupt in its own way. In fact, neither party has the answers right now. We need a new party, in essence. In my opinion, we need a new party that's based on economic conservatism, but combined with environmental progressivism. In other words, we need strong regulatory rules to protect the environment and to protect individuals from predatory banking practices, for example, or predatory agricultural corporations, for example, or predatory drug companies, for example. But we need that same government to lay off of small businesses so that small businesses can create jobs and create incomes for people and actually build a new economy based on economic free market principles. And I know to some of you, this may sound contradictory because you've been taught the false choice that everything has to be either Republican or Democrat. And you think there's no in between and there's no crossing over. And you think that Republicans, like if you're a typical young millennial Democrat, you probably believe that Republicans are evil and they don't have any compassion and all they care about is fat cat wealth and making money, and they just want to screw immigrants over, and they hate black people and minorities, and they're all crazy Bible thumpers and so on and so forth. This is the kind of thing that you've been told because you've been listening to Democratic propaganda. What you haven't been told is that the economic policies of Bernie Sanders will impoverish the nation. What you haven't been told is that the criminal history of Hillary Clinton is so treasonous and so dangerous that if she is elected Queen of America, America will become a criminal regime, a dictatorial regime run by an actual criminal. You have not been told that the Republican approach to compassion is not to hand money to people, but to create opportunity for people. You haven't been told the truth that there's no such thing as equality of outcome. The far greater truth is that we all have equality of opportunity in a free market society, and yet different people, because they apply themselves in different ways, will create different economic outcomes. In a free society, you will always have some wealthy, some middle class, and some poor. That's actually a healthy sign of a healthy economy and a free society. In an unfree society, which is a police state totalitarian regime, i.e. Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, in that kind of a society, you have a massive, massive impoverished lower class. You have almost no middle class, and then you have a very small section of the wealthy, politically connected elite who run everything and dictate to the impoverished masses how they're supposed to live their lives. If this all comes as a shock to you, let me assure you, I've lived in several different countries around the world. I lived in South America for 2 years. I was nearly fluent in Spanish at the time. I was a resident of Ecuador. I had a driver's license in Ecuador, and you can only get that driver's license, at least where I was, by taking the test in Espanol. And so I had mastered the language enough to take the tests in Spanish. I lived in Taiwan also for 2 years, and I speak Mandarin Chinese. I have traveled extensively throughout the world, and I've seen socialism. I've seen totalitarianism. I've seen free markets, and I've seen unfree markets. I've seen progressivism run wild, and I've seen corrupt conservatism run wild as well. I've seen it all. Well, I guess I haven't seen it all. I mean, I haven't been to Russia, but I've traveled throughout Southeast Asia quite extensively. I've seen China. I've seen Hong Kong and Singapore and Malaysia, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, Central and South America, Panama, Costa Rica, Peru, lots of places. And I've seen the economic consequences that come from electing democratic socialist type of candidates. So my warning to you, and this is a heartfelt warning, because you're younger than me, you're going to have to live through all this crap that you create, right? So this is about you creating your future. If you vote for Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, you're creating an economic hell for yourself. And I don't want to see you make that mistake. So think carefully before you vote. The greatest failing of liberal thinking is the failure to connect cause and effect. Most liberals, i.e. leftists, progressives, are good people with good intentions. Most of them are not evil people, just like most people on the right are not evil people. They have good intentions. But the great failing of the political left is the inability to understand that the best intentions often inadvertently create the most hellish outcomes. If your intention, for example, is to make sure that everybody has a meal to eat every day, and you say, well, let's give out food stamps to people who are hungry. That sounds good. That's a good intention, right? Who wouldn't want to help the hungry? So you give out food stamps. Well, all of a sudden you find that, there's more people hungry that want food stamps, so you give out more. And then there's more and more, so you give out more. And then there's people who say, well, hey, why should I get a job if I can just get free money for food from the government? Why bother working? So they quit their jobs. Or they just get fired and don't bother to find one again because, hey, who cares? Now they're getting unemployment, and they're getting housing subsidies, and they're getting a free phone from Obama, and they're getting free food. And hey, the unemployment benefits last 2 years now, so why not just collect money for not working? And when they do go out and get a job, they only work for about 2 weeks, long enough to get fired so they can collect another 2 years of unemployment. So now, out of your desire to help people, what you've actually created is a dependence society. You've created an entitlement society where people no longer desire to get ahead. They no longer have this idea of self-reliance, and instead they exist only as subjects of an overbearing, overreaching government that now controls people because it writes their checks. It gives them the benefits. You've created a societal hell, even though you started with positive intentions. The real solution to this is to not create a society based on handouts, that is, handing out money and food and housing, but rather hand out job training and support for people to find jobs and get work and hold those jobs. In other words, you can help people to transition into the workplace. You can do adult retraining that the government pays for to take someone who was, let's say, laid off from one company because there are too many workers in that area. Now they need new job skills to go into an area that isn't served well, that has high demand for employees. So job retraining by the government makes sense, but paying people to not work doesn't make any sense at all. And remember, above all, every dollar that your government hands out to some person in America is a dollar that they've confiscated from someone else who is working. The government doesn't create real money. They create counterfeit currency, fiat currency, through quantitative easing, money devaluation, money printing, and so on, but they don't create real wealth. The government creates nothing of real value. All they can do is take from one group and give to another, confiscate and redistribute. This is the key economic principle of people like Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, who say, let's raise the taxes so we can give more money out to more people. Well, where do they get that money? They take it from those who are working, people like myself and maybe you, or one day you, if you're not yet working. Have you ever had the idea that maybe you want to own a business? You want to create a business, create an opportunity? Maybe you're an inventor. You want to innovate something. You'd like to create something new, maybe run a multi-million-dollar enterprise and have your own employees and actually earn a profit from doing something for society. Have you ever thought that? Well, under the system of Bernie Sanders, you don't get to keep but maybe 20% of your profits, because the government comes and takes the other 80% so they can hand it out to those who are voting for Democrats. That's Bernie Sanders' economic policy in a nutshell. That's Hillary Clinton's economic policy in a nutshell. It's a disastrous system. It always fails. History has shown over and over and over again that it fails. Look at the fall of the former Soviet Union. Centrally planned economies collapse. Look at the fall of Venezuela that's underway right now. Centrally planned economies don't work. Look at the difference between East Berlin and West Berlin before the Berlin Wall came down. East Berlin, based on centrally planned economies, you could call it the Bernie Sanders Berlin, was a total disaster, an economic disaster, mass poverty, mass starvation. West Berlin, which was under conservative economic principles of the free market, was abundant. It was doing fantastic. People weren't starving. People were doing really, really well. What's the difference? Well, the Bernie Sanders side, East Berlin, is based on disastrous economic policies. Whereas, let's say, the Margaret Thatcher side, West Berlin, or what you might call the conservative side, free market side, was doing great. So think carefully. If you want to live in a society where you can keep the money that you earn, then you want to vote for conservative economic principles. But if you want to live in a society where everything you earn is stolen from you essentially at gunpoint by a coercive totalitarian regime that gains its power by handing out freebies to tens of millions of people who don't work and don't contribute anything to society, then vote for Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, because that is the future that you will get, and it is a disastrous future. And it could spell the end of America as we know it today. So that is my warning to you, the millennials. Take it from a guy who used to be your age, but has now lived long enough to know the difference between these economic policies, that you do not want a Democrat in the White House ever again. I'm not saying the Republicans have all the answers. I'm not saying George Bush was a genius, because he wasn't. But anybody for this election, if we don't turn this system around that Obama has destroyed for the last 7 years, we are gone as an economic powerhouse in this world. The economic collapse is coming. If it cannot be stopped, it's going to be so disastrous. You will wonder what the hell happened, and the answer is Obama happened, and economic liberal policies is what happened. Socialism happened, and it destroys everything that it touches. So thanks for listening. My name's Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. I'm the editor of newstarget.com. Listen to my podcast at healthrangerreport.com. Take care.